that was way above my pay grade. What am I doing?
Good job, dude.
That's pretty good. And then that also, I'm on my soapbox now, so I might as well say,
welcome to the Bible in 1 Year podcast, brought to you by two Brits and aBible. This is day 13, covering Genesis 38, 39, and 40.
in Genesis 38, Judah and his many women are explored. That came out wrong. In Genesis 39, Joseph is taken to Egypt, imprisoned by his master, Potiphar's wife. And in Genesis 40, Joseph interprets dreams. The butler is restored and the baker is killed. All right, I'm going to jump straight in and just go for the jugular, really. This is an insanely difficult thing. It's way above our pay grade. So Genesis 38:7, Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the Lord's sight, so the Lord put him to death. And when I was reading that, I literally just put a note, I would love more information. I would love to know a bit more about this, understand it.
Yeah, sometimes I can give you more information. Today, I haven't got a clue. I'll see what my apologetics Bible says about it while you're chatting a bit more about,
love it,
Judah and stuff.
Bringing out the big guns. Well, I'll also say what I think about it. Just, I wasn't going to leave you dangling there. That wouldn't be fair. So I've mentioned, I think, an apologist called Frank Turek, who I really like. Runs a YouTube channel called Cross Examined. He's written a couple of really great books, like I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist and Stealing from God, two of my favorite books. And he sort of asks the question, is God capable of murder? And the answer really is no. God can't murder us. He can just move us from this plane of existence to another plane of existence. And so I don't know what did. I don't know what happened to him, but I feel like the fact that the Lord put him to death must have been a loving and a merciful thing for whatever reason. So even if there's nothing else to say about it, that is something that I will say. And it is kind of interesting, isn't it, that then the mother, Tamar, sort of ends up sort of prostituting herself and things like this.
Yeah.
No, wait a minute. Yes, that is right, isn't it?
I think only the one time, very intentionally, to Judah, just to get a son, basically, so she's not for the rest of her life. But yes,
right. But yeah, just kind of gives you a hint at some of the dysfunction of this family. And
yeah, it's proper screwed up. And I think for me, so the Apologetics Bible there gives a lot of extra information, but it didn't give us anything as to why Heir would have just been, taken off. But what I love about this is how Judah, this is just pretty hideous stuff and deceptive and deceiving, whatever. But it's through the line of Judah that we get Jesus, isn't it? And
right.
No, David's Benjamin. But how cool that God can use such wrong-uns to still bring good out of it. So I love that.
This is unofficial, but I feel like God likes a challenge. I think that he's like, well, I'm infinite. Let's use the worst wrong-uns just so that everyone else can see there's hope for me. And yeah, I mean, the fact that Judah is called out and he has said about having Tamar put to death and then recognizes his seal and therefore his own hypocrisy. Yeah. This is one of the things that does soften Judah's heart. And by the end of Genesis, I think it's in Genesis 49 when Jacob is sort of rebuking his sons and prophesying what's going to happen to them next.
Yeah.
Judah is proper worried about what is going to be said about him. Right. And it's actually the moments of him being humbled and actually sort of learning from his mistakes that I think is the reason why he was chosen to be represented in that way, in that line. So that's pretty cool.
Cool. It's a weird little aside thrown in there in the middle of Joseph's story, really, because obviously by now with Joseph, he's been taken off into Egypt, sold to this dude Potiphar, and immediately sees success and sees God sort of working and blessing him. So like he's actually a proper man of God. We haven't seen one of these since Noah. So it's kind of nice to see someone who's truly walking with God and like working in accordance with what God wants, really. I love the fact that obviously, so this dude Potiphar's wife like tries to hit on him. Presumably Potiphar's a very successful, wealthy man, so you'd assume his wife is very attractive, very sought after. So to actually turn that down would be a heck of a thing for him to do. And he gets thrown in jail, which I suppose that is a sign that just because somebody's in jail doesn't mean they're guilty. This whole innocent till proven guilty thing.
Right.
And also the big thing out of this for me is that where God wants us to be isn't necessarily where we want to be. Right. I'm sure Joseph wouldn't have wanted to have been in jail, but God wanted and needed him in there.
Right. And this is all part of him working on Joseph, obviously. Something that just occurred to me as you were saying that is that actually does tie in the story of Judah sleeping with Tamar quite well, because Judah is tempted by a woman and goes through with the sin, whereas Joseph is, tempted by a woman and doesn't. And Judah seemingly at that time isn't particularly punished for his choice, whereas Joseph is. So it's the one that's suffering that, that was way above my pay grade. What am I doing?
Good job, dude.
That's pretty good. And then that also, I'm on my soapbox now, so I might as well say, just reminds me a little bit of sort of James when he says, I know we're going New Testament there, but the idea that our suffering is a blessing. So, Joseph is suffering, but it is a blessing, and it's being worked through. I had said, actually, the thing I said was basically similar to what you said, Genesis 39:18. Potiphar's wife screamed for help, and Joseph left his cloak, and that was the smoking gun to actually convince Potiphar that he had tried it on with his wife or whatever. And so it's that. It's always the clothes with Joseph,
right?
The problem. Yeah. Lots of wardrobe malfunctions, it seems. I love skipping forward to Genesis 40. It's very dark humor, but I love the fact that Joseph is, interpreting the dream of the butler and the baker. And, he tells the butler, oh, you're going to be fine. Don't worry. In 3 days, you'll be restored and everything will be back cushy. And then the baker's like, what about me? What about me? Tell me. Yeah. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift off your head and impale your body on a pole, and the birds will eat away at your flesh. Genesis 40:19. And the only comment I put was awkward.
yeah, proper awkward, isn't it?
Yeah,
no
unbelievable.
kidding. But I love the fact that it's how he's now starting to realize that actually interpretations belong to God. He's actually developing a relationship with God during this stage. We don't know whether that's while he's in prison or while he's working with Potiphar's wife, while he's, being a jumped up little teenager with his brothers. Like, we're not sure, but he's actually starting to hear God's voice and develop a relationship with him. Because one of the things that I had written down on here was along the lines of Pharaoh's dreams, and all his wise men, all his interpreters couldn't interpret the dream. And so suddenly the cupbearer is like, oh, hold on. You remember that time you threw me in jail? Presumably, like, he got out of jail and didn't really want to remind Pharaoh why he was in jail. So he just let that one slide a little bit. But he says, there's this dude, Joseph, etc., etc. Now, at that time, to the best of my understanding, if you were not 100% with your interpretation of a dream or a prophecy or something like that, you could be accused of being a false prophet, which probably had pretty big repercussions at the time. So for Pharaoh's wise men to not even have a crack at giving a go for an interpretation kind of makes sense, because if they'd have got it wrong, Pharaoh wasn't happy with what they said, they're probably in line to be next in jail or be on a spike. But for Joseph to then step forward and be like, nah, it's this, that took some balls, man, I reckon. If he's wrong, then he's probably in a worse situation than being in charge of the jail. Like, again, he's being blessed in the situations he's in.
Joseph has the cojones of an absolute warrior.
Yes, sir, he does.
And I'm glad what you touched upon there just quickly, because I was questioning that. I was like, why didn't some others have a crack at it? And that's exactly why. That makes sense.
So more on Joseph tomorrow. For the time being, any questions, visit the Facebook page, Two Brits and a Bible.
Or email us at twobritsbible@gmail.com.
Lovely.
Awesome.